All right, guys, let's do chapter 17 of the life in my book of life, Gloria, the story of a woman, chapter 17. Last time I talked about how life is not kind to us, how life is hard for us to deal with, and how we deal with it makes all the difference in the world of how we come out of it. And so I was back in the time where I was having a hard time with my son because he had a learning disability. And I'm going to tell you all a little bit about that today. I put him in the first grade, and after he went into the first grade, it was horrible. He did not want to go. He hung on the fence and cried naturally because he knew that he was not going to have an easy time of it. I knew that he had to go to school, and I did not realize how hard it was going to be for him. So we get into the third grade, the absolute third, 2 years of absolutely horror. So after the first week of school, the teacher, the principal, and another lady called me in for a conference. And they sit there and they explain to me, Miss Stone, your child has a learning disability. That's the first time I'd ever heard that word. But I knew that I could understand what they were talking about because learning disability. I call it something else now. I call it learning differently because my son was very smart. He just did not learn like other children. And they said to me, we have a special class, a special ed class here that we would like to put him into. And I remember breaking down in tears. I sit there and cried because I thought, finally, I'm going to get some help with my child. Finally, I can get some answers. Finally, he can get some help. So, of course, I agreed to the special ed department. And the teacher, I cannot remember her name. I apologize to her immensely, but let me tell you, she was wonderful. The problem was they would call him out of a class and he would go to this special ed department. And at that time, there was no separation of the children. There would be children in there wearing helmets because they were probably autistic and would sit and bang their head against the wall. So he was put into a class that was not separated, just kids like him, and then children that had severe problems. So he would get teased about that. And my kid was pretty big and he would fight. He was very angry, which I can certainly understand. And I was angry as well. So when he went to this class, he had to deal with the kids making fun of him and then him going into the class and him looking around and saying, I'm not like some of these other kids. Why am I here? So in the third grade, what a horrible, horrible spot for a kid to be put into. However, he did learn how to read finally, but it took him 2 years in this class. And the lady was, I remember he used to bring home pot holders that he had made. And I kept every one of those for years and years and years because they were so important in his progress. When he got really frustrated, she would give him something to do other than learning the words on a piece of paper. She'd give him something to do with his hands, which he became very, very good with his hands, working with his hands. Now, and later on, we'll go through this, but my grandson had a learning disability, but I knew exactly how to deal with it. It was so different with Dylan. Poor Dylan never had to go through the experience that his poor dad had to go through, unfortunately. Um, Now, my son, David, could have been a major league baseball player. He was absolutely fantastic in Little League. And that's another story, that's another chapter that I will go in to tell you how cruel people can be, how cruel adults can be in life. And we've all experienced them. Every one of us has experienced them. And let me tell you, it is not, I tell you, people that are not nice, I, I, I don't know what should be done with them, but I can tell you right now, they should not be a part of society because everybody looks at people and judges so quickly. And you should not do that. That is not how you should be, because you do not know what is going on in that person's life. But once again, that's another chapter that we will get into, that I will get into later on, when David was in Little League. Um, so what we went through at that time, once again, this was before um, I got into drugs and alcohol. Thank goodness, because when I got into drugs and alcohol, I couldn't handle anything. I thought I could, but I could not, because I was constantly running for that drink to get high on. I was running toward that joint. I was running toward those pills. And I did a lot of them. I did a lot of drinking. I did a lot of drugs. And I'm not happy to admit it, but I did, because that was the only way I could survive. It was the only way that I could survive and handle the load. That, once again, let me explain it to you. My husband was an absentee father. He was there. He went to the ball games. He went to different events, but he was not there in the evenings to help me fix dinner, put dinner on the table. Every now and then he'd come home and grill, but usually there was somebody coming over to, to have dinner or to visit, his sister or friends or someone. Um, I didn't have a dishwasher, so afterwards I had to wash all the dishes. I don't think he ever washed a dish. I don't remember him ever washing a dish in his life. I had to do all the laundry. He needed clothes for work. The kids needed school clothes. I needed clothes for going to work. I had to do every bit of that. I had to do the homework. I had to deal with Dylan. I had to go to the schools. Now, let me tell you, that will drive anybody to drink or drugs. And I did not know how to lay my foot down and say, listen, you're going to come home and you're going to help. Otherwise, I'm walking out. I will leave it all with you. I did not do that, because I was taught to be submissive, and that the women run the house and the women are in charge of the children. Well, that's BS, okay? It is a joint venture. And any young person out there that watches this, let me tell you something. If you are with someone, you make sure that they carry 50% of the load. And if they don't, get rid of them. That's my advice to you, okay? And that's coming from an 84-year-old who's lived a life that, if I had to go back over it again, that is the one thing that I would change, is that man would be responsible. Or even if you're with another woman, I don't care who you're with, but make sure that they handle 50% of your load, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Not you do 100%. And then be resentful that you do it. And I was very resentful. I was extremely angry, and pretty soon after doing drugs and alcohol, that anger manifested big time. I was not a happy drunk. I was not a happy drug user. Absolutely not at all. Had I been a man, I'd have been a wife beater. I'll admit that. That is how angry I was at everything that I had to do. And as I said, no one should have to live under that type of stress. But for some reason, many women feel that they must. And that's what we are taught. We were taught, in my day and age, we were taught that that's how it worked. Men can go out and do whatever they wanted to. Women stayed home and took care of everything. But they did not, they forgot that women then went to work to help pay some of the bills. And so a full-time job, and then you go home to the swing shift, which is another full-time job, is too much, entirely too much. And that's why I say to young people today, man, don't do it. You got a choice. You choose to be strong and say, no, no, and even if you're divorced, you make sure that that person has equal responsibility toward the family that he or she or whoever helped create. That's my advice today to you. Now, this is chapter 17, I do believe. So once again, come on back, hit the subscribe button, because y'all know y'all gonna want to know what's gonna be happening later on down the line. Because I tell you, it gets wild and crazy. I went nuts. I can tell y'all stories that you will not believe, trust me. And that's where we're getting to. So make sure you're around for those. So hit the subscribe button. No, I love y'all, and I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.